who was born into an immensely wealthy family, but then renounced all that wealth to become a nun. Well, today I want to tell you about an Ethiopian violinist, pianist, and mostly composer by the name of Emahoy Guebrou. Emahoy was born in 1923 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, into a very wealthy, very influential family. Her father was a high-ranking official in the imperial court, and her family moved in elite circles connected with the emperor. So from the very beginning of her life, she was surrounded with culture, with education, with privilege. And so, because of all of this, music entered her life quickly and became apparent very fast that she wasn't just talented, she was exceptional with music. When she was only 6 years old, she was sent abroad to a Swiss boarding school, and actually she was one of the very first girls in Ethiopia to ever go abroad for a school. That alone was exceptional, but she continued with her music studies, and all the other studies, of course. And by the time she was only 8 years old, she was already performing violin and piano concerts. She absorbed both the traditional European music, but also the traditional Ethiopian music, and this blending of these two would become what she became known for. Her privileged and carefree life was shattered in 1936 when Italy decided to invade Ethiopia. She and her family were forced into exile, and she ended up actually as a prisoner of war in a camp. Imagine the contrast. Here she is, very privileged in a private school, performing at European salons, and now all of a sudden she is abandoned on this island and suddenly just experiencing what it's like to be a prisoner of war. She was a young teenager at the time, and of course, this experience deeply affected her from then on. She became much more introspective, much more resilient, and this began a deep search for spiritual meaning in life altogether. After being freed and returning to Ethiopia, she resumed her education and her musical training, but then this big shift happened when she was 21 years old. She experienced a profound religious calling, and rather than continuing a life of status and recognition, she decided to give it all up. She renounced her wealth, she renounced all her worldly life, and entered the convent to become a nun, and she took on the name of Emahoy, which means sister or mother. For the first 10 years, she lived in a remote monastery in the northern part of Ethiopia. She would walk around barefoot, and she was engaged in deep spiritual devotion. I imagine a lot of prayer. Her life was devoted to faith, to service, but also to music, and she used music as a form of prayer. Her music does not fit neatly into Western music categories, but it also doesn't fit neatly in any African categories musically. Her music is often described as meditative, as timeless, and as floating. It's almost like you can't really tell a meter from one measure to the next. Definitely outside of rhythm. It uses Ethiopian modal traditions, but then it uses Western piano techniques. In 1967, she released her first recording, and she did make some money off of that, but all the money she gained went back into an orphanage that she helped support. For her, music wasn't about fame, it was a prayer, and her music was about compassion, and it was about love, and so that's including what she would make from it. Later in life, she moved into a convent in Jerusalem, and there she actually followed the same routine that she'd been doing. She was helping people, she was helping children, she played piano for hours as a prayer. She continued to live simply and was largely unknown to the world. And then, quietly, her music began to travel. Decades after recording her music, it was discovered through archival releases and this sudden global interest in Ethiopian music. Online platforms introduced her music to brand new audiences. And at this point, she developed somewhat of like a cult-like following, especially online, and people were absolutely drawn to this minimalist spiritual music and this cross-cultural sounds of different worlds coming together. So she was born in 1923 and she passed away from natural causes in 2023. She was 99 years old, still living in devotion, still living in the same way that she had, quiet, simple, dedicated to music, dedicated to helping others. She reminds us that greatness does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it sits very quietly in the corner of a room, and only when you really look that way can you experience it. Her life asks a powerful question. What if music is not something we perform for the world, but instead something we offer to it? Go and listen to Something by Emahoy Guebrou.